Well, I grew up in Macau, and actually my family was from southern China, and but because of the communist regime and people have to run away for certain thing, and we left to Macau, and I grew up in Macau. Well, my parents were in Macau at the time when I grew up, and then after the graduation. Because I was educated in Chinese, so you pretty well have only two choices. One is go to China, and another one is go to Taiwan. And China is not a good place at the time because you remember the story about the Red Guard and the revolution, cultural revolution. So that was in a turmoil. So my brother and I end up to Taiwan to pursue our education. So I went to medical school there. But before I actually left Taiwan, I also spent a year in radiology. So in a way that also gave me interest into musculoskeletal problem. And then I went to Canada. I was intern in Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, and then after that, to the many teaching hospital in Toronto. And so after I finished my fellowship, actually I decided not to live in a big city. So I went to the Western Ontario, and I became the director of the rheumatic disease unit. And it just happened the American start to recruiting rheumatologists from Canada. So I kind of came down to look at a few places, including Phoenix, College Station, and Waco. And that's the rest is history. So I'm settled down in Waco. But in Waco, there's several interesting things because number one, we got a very strong family practice program. So in that sense, we all have to contribute some of our time to teach the family practice resident. And as a matter of fact, almost from day one, we set out to teach them. And I also helped them to establish the so-called rheumatology teaching clinic. So actually, the resident will work with me, and they will learn about rheumatology program. As a matter of fact, in year 2014, they find that they finally recognize my teaching is good enough. They give me an award of Ainsworth Outstanding Faculty Award. I also, of course, besides providing clinical care teaching, I also involved very much in the clinical research, clinical trial. So up till now, we have done easily 100 trials. And the area including rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, gout, and some of the pain situation like fibromyalgia. So we actually have done quite well. And as a matter of fact, we got a research unit there, and we have 2 nurses and 1 the secretarial staff. So we pretty well generally anytime we have about 6 study going on. So that's what we are doing in Waco. And in spite of being a small town, actually, our mental capacity to travel all over the world and not only in this country. That was a joke from the old day. One of the major Johns Hopkins chief of medicine physician and well-renowned in the world, his name is called William Osler. He said, well, treating rheumatology is easy. When you see a patient coming in the front door, you leave from the back door. So I think the attitude is that we have to deal with a problem, a chronic problem, not easy to deal with. And you have to have the heart and the brain to deal with them. Well, I think one of the things is this, rheumatology have several things. Number one, it's a challenging job. And our diagnosis is not straightforward. It's not just a black and white. Because I always explain to the patient, we are looking at a book. Some book, you look at the first chapter, you know what's going to end. Rheumatology sometimes not that easy. It take a while, take some collection of the evidence of your finding and all these things before you come to conclusion. That's number one. And number two is the treatment right now is exploding. And outside of few conditions now we cannot really say control very well, but we got treatment for all area. So I think that's a good part of rheumatology. It's just a growing field. And the third thing is you deal with people. And you deal with the people over a long period of time. Unfortunately, some of the arthritis patients, they don't suffer for days. They not only suffer for years, they suffer for decades. And you deal with their problem and you help them. And that's a much more longer-term relationship. And that's very rewarding at times. Well, 5 days a week, I just do medicine. But on the other hand, I do enjoy a few things. And I do enjoy music. And we like travel. And I also enjoy movie and some reading if I have the time. And another rare condition is that I can go golfing with my wife, except we never have the time.